What's up everybody, it's Izzy. In today's video, what I want to talk about is how often you should compete. So I'm just going to start off the video by giving you my answer, and that is, it's usually the sweet spot for most people is about 3 to 4 times per year. And once you get into the actual logistics of, a calendar year and how many times you can compete and still have enough productive training time, the question kind of answers itself. So let me explain to you what I mean here. Whenever you're getting ready for a meet, typically you're going to need a week to peak, and then usually most of the week after the meet, you won't be doing that much productive training because you'll be recovering from the meet. Now, with some larger lifters, this is an even longer time period where maybe they need 2 weeks to peak, and for some smaller lifters, perhaps they only need half of a week to peak and only half of a week to recover. But the bottom line is that for most people, on average, you're going to have about 2 weeks of training that's just not very productive, especially relative to your normal training, because you're getting ready for the meet and then you're recovering from the meet. So if we assume 2 weeks of peaking and recovery for each meet that you do, then we have to think about how many weeks does it take for you to make substantial progress to the point where you'd be happy with the numbers that you put up at a meet. So for a novice lifter, obviously they make progress more quickly so they can compete more often. If, let's say a novice lifter can set some PRs that they're happy with after an 8-week training cycle, this means that they can compete every 10 weeks. Now, if it's an intermediate lifter who needs more like 12 to 16 weeks of training, you add that extra 2 weeks of peaking and recovery, you're looking at a meet every 14 to 18 weeks, which again puts you right in that 3 to 4 meets per year range. Now, for an advanced lifter who might need between 16 and 20 weeks to see some kind of substantial progress on their PRs, then you really start to get into an area where it's like how often it's more like 2 or 3 meets per year, with 2 meets being meets that you really focus on, and then maybe the third meet you kind of just train through. You don't really peak as much for it, so that way you don't have to lose as much training time. And with 2 meets that you're focusing on per year, generally one will be the qualifier for your nationals, and then nationals itself will be the most important meet of the year for the vast majority of lifters, unless you go to Worlds or something like. And if you're good enough to go to Worlds, then Worlds will be the most important meet of the year. Anyway, so let's think about, like I said, all you have to do is look at the logistics, and this question does kind of answer itself. It depends on how fast you can make progress. So like I said, I'll reiterate what I said. For novices, you're going to be able to compete more often. You probably get away with competing every 8 to 12 weeks because you don't need as much time to set PRs, and it's good for you to get the experience anyway. But assuming that you compete every 10 weeks, right, that's still only 5 meets per year because there's only 52 weeks in a year. Now, if you're an intermediate trainee and you're taking 14 to 18 weeks per meet, that's an average of, like, say 16 weeks. So then you're getting right at that 3 meets per year mark where you're fully peaked and at your best for 3 meets per year. Now, for an advanced lifter who, let's say, is averaging so they need those 16 to 20 weeks of training plus the 2 extra weeks. So they're averaging something like, 20 weeks between meets that they care about and meets that they need to do their best at. And of course, when you start looking at the math like that, you realize that you can't even fit in 3 meets per year where you're fully peaked and recovered. So you have usually 2 meets that you're going to prioritize. And generally, the way that this will work for the more advanced lifter, like at the very highest levels, is that they'll do like a tune-up or a qualifier meet, and then nationals will be one of the meets that they put everything on the line for, and then Worlds will be the other meet that they put everything on the line for in terms of being fully peaked and fully recovered. But for most of you, nationals will be your most important meet of the year, so that you want to have at least one other meet in there where you put up your best performance so that you can have the highest qualifying total possible for nationals. Anyway, the last thing that I want to address in this video, since I've already kind of covered the logistical side of this, is should you compete at all? Because like I said, why are we assuming that we should do as many meets per year as we can? Why not only do 1 meet per year and do 1 meet per year, and that way you minimize the amount of weeks that you're spending peaking and recovering? Or maybe do no meets per year, right? Just wait until you can win nationals to do your first meet. The reason why I really discourage people from this strategy is that if you don't actually compete, generally what happens is that you don't make progress at the same rate, or whenever some adverse conditions come along, it kind of just completely blows you off course. Because if you don't have a meet coming up, and let's say you have a minor or even a major injury, there's going to be absolutely no reason for you to train around that and still post like a total, even if it's just a mock meet. There's going to be no reason. You can just keep postponing things and postponing things. Whereas if you're competing with the frequency that I'm mentioning here, it forces you to be held to a specific standard by qualified judges that are holding everyone else to the same standard. So you won't get these situations where you're setting PRs, but really what you're doing is squatting slightly higher than last time, pausing for slightly less. Maybe your ass comes up a little bit more on bench. You know, maybe you hit your deadlift a little bit versus your last PR. With a meet, it ensures that you are meeting the standard on a specific day. And ultimately, I think that competition brings out the best in people. And then that's why we have sports in the first place. You know, I'm all about self-improvement, and it's great that a lot of people do powerlifting for self-improvement purposes. And if that's your thing, I'm not criticizing that. But in my experience, athletes make better progress when they actually compete against other athletes. So I do recommend that you compete and try to go to big meets, the biggest meets that you can qualify for, get experience, and become a really good lifter. Anyways, that's really all I have to say on the subject. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, my friends, have a great day. Good luck with your training. Peace.